And we're live. So, welcome everyone. I'm very happy to be here with three of the brightest people I've met in a long time. It's definitely a pleasure for me, and I hope it's going to be the same for you. I'm really happy to be here. And today we're diving into how scaled and validated the performance of their tile rendering engine using Gatling Enterprise Edition. We'll break down Korem's challenges, testing strategies, what they learned, and how Gatling supported their entire process. But before we start, I would like you guys to introduce yourself a little. So let's start with Sam, since he's the first person on our image. So Sam, the floor is yours. Quick introduction.
Hey, so I'm Samir Rabe, systems architect at Korem since 8 years now. And was involved with the Gatling product selection at Korem as a provider and also used it across a bunch of projects.
Okay, thank you very much. What about you, Hugo?
Yep, I'm a developer at Korem. Um, I used to be a QA for 8 years at Korem also, where I did a lot of test automation in Java, especially for backend services. So that's why I was involved from the start when it came to first testing what Gatling could do and then develop the first performance test for our applications.
Yeah, and you have a surprise prepared for us today. So that's going to be great. Thank you. And what about you, Mark Andre?
Yes, so Mark, I'm a product owner at Korem for 2 years now. I was a developer before, so I think they thought that I was talking better than I was coding, so they put me in this position. But yeah, I'm a product owner at an application that is using Gatling. So
Awesome. Thank you very much for your introduction. So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to cover today. So, well, as always, if in case you haven't been here, we always start with a quick introduction to Gatling. Then we're gonna explore Korem's context. Then we're gonna talk a little bit about their performance challenges, the scenarios they've built, the results they've achieved, and then we'll wrap it up with with a little bit of of Gatling's roadmap and some surprises ahead of the road. So I think that without further ado, let's just jump right into Gatling. So, what is Gatling? By the way, before I start, there's a poll on the comments that you feel free to interact with it. Where I ask you if you're familiar or not with Gatling. So, Gatling. Gatling's built for engineering teams who need realistic, scalable, reliable load testing. It's a test as code API first platform that's built on a highly efficient engine that can simulate massive traffic with very little overhead. Teams generally choose Gatling because it integrates cleanly into CI/CD pipelines, scales across cloud, and provides clear, actionable performance insights. And that foundation is exactly the reason why companies like Korem used to enable complex real world traffic patterns and testing. So we're a world leader of everything as code load testing, number one platform for API test performance, and the best engine for high scale load testing. And if you're not too sure about that, try Gatling and you'll see it for yourself. Now, let's talk a little bit more about our product pillars. Okay, let me quickly walk you through so we listen to what Korem has to say. Okay, so Gatling is based on five pillars: insights and analytics, which is pretty much is like real-time dashboards, trends, run comparisons, and APM integrations to help you understand performance quickly. We're also one of our pillars is also test creation flexibility. We offer code first, low code, and no code scripting. We fully support JavaScript, Kotlin, Java, Scala, TypeScript, and Postman imports. And now with Gatling Studio, we are even more equipped to help you script without code. We're also, our third pillar is automation. We work with CI/CD triggers, API-driven pipelines, infrastructure as code setup, and automatic stop criteria. Also, and one of my favorites, collaboration. We offer team collaboration, roles, SSO, shared assets, and governance. Everything that enterprise organizations need to stay safe and compliant. And last, distributed load infrastructure. You can route your lunch from pretty much everywhere with Gatling Cloud, private locations, Kubernetes. Gatling super flexible, and that's the flexibility that companies like Korem needed when it came to building, to testing, what they built. And now that I talk more about Gatling, let's talk about Korem. So I wanted to ask you guys, specifically you, Marc-Andre, actually, please tell us a little bit more about Korem before I dive with my questions, just that I got really excited because this is sorry.
Sure, no problem. So, Korem is a geospatial specialist one-stop shop. Just so everyone is on the same foot, I'll explain a bit what is geospatial. So geospatial is just any data relied to a specific location. So in other words, any data with a geographic component, we can help customer better understand and leverage this data. So we are a 32 years old companies, I think. So before, I'm sure we started with the paper maps, but now everything is on the web. So any type of data that is geospatial related, we work with. So anything like weather or demographic data, satellite imagery, mobile device location data, and many more types of data we are working with. So our core business is to repackage and resell geospatial data, combined with developing custom solutions, so that this enable companies to better understand their data, make critical decisions, and take meaningful actions.
Wow. And usually, what kind of performance expectations do your customers have when it comes to map rendering and geospatial systems?
Yeah, so the performance can vary a lot. Some applications are more in the low end in terms of complexity. So common use case that everyone can encounter in their day-to-day life is like coverage locators on a telecom website. So if you want to check if 5G is available in your area, or qualification for fiber, for example, or store locators, you are looking, you want to eat at a specific restaurant chain, and you check on their website what they are. This are some kinds of application we work with, but sometimes it's more complex than that. For example, in the telco use case, they can use our application we developed to optimize and monitor their network performance. So this requires a lot of rendering, and we render really complex polygons, and it has to be really precise. When you talk about it's close to 2 meters resolution sometimes,
Wow.
and it has to be really smooth, even if it's complex. They have multiple layers at once when they do analytics. So performance really needs to be seamless and quick. So the expectation is there, and sometimes it's not always we're not always developing apps that do mapping. Sometimes it's just processing and analyzing raw data. For example, if you're an insurance company and you want the data live, it has to be really quick. So we need to make sure that performance is there.
Wow, yeah, I imagine. And also, besides performance, there's also like, like the how can I say this? Accuracy. It's also like a matter of like, being really accurate. Is there something like that you could tell us a little bit about how you achieve like that accuracy?
Oh well, there's multiple tests that we need to do on our side. It's not only is load testing, but we have a
Oh, for sure.
multiple big chain of quality insurance to make sure that the data is accurate. And but there's also the stability of our
Yeah,
apps that needs to be there. So most of our apps are not public facing applications, it's more of private side of thing, but some of them are business critical applications, so they need to be up 24/7, and it needs to be reliable even if we are at peak time of usage. um, like I said, for the insurance part of thing, if they have a customer at the end of the line, they need some answers really quickly. Our services needs to be up and running. Same thing for telecom. Not only their network has to be up all the time for every customers, but regular customers, but they have like first responders also as customers. So imagine there's a wildfire, and the
wow, yeah,
first responders need some mobile trucks to make sure the network is up all the time. So they use our softwares to be able to do that. So our apps need to be up and running 24/7 and performant. That's a big ask for our customers.
definitely. Like super mission critical apps require, I totally understand. Thank you very much for such a great introduction, and it definitely helped me, and I hope the rest of you will understand Korem better. And 32 years old, wow, that's a lot in today's like world. So yeah, here's for more years, Korem.
Thanks. I was
Okay.
not there at 32 years ago. I was a small child, but still. Yeah.
Now, I wanted to ask you what maybe you were some sort of prodigy, like yeah. I've been working here since like I was 3, but now
No.
no. But yeah, thank you very much for that intro. Now let's go to the next slide and talk a little bit more about the contexts and needs. So before adopting Gatling, what were the biggest obstacles you faced and when you were trying to model and understand performance? Maybe that's a good question. Yeah, sorry. Sam.
Yeah, I'll answer that one.
Uh-huh.
To sum it up, we were faced with finding out performance issues, mostly in production. So too late for for fixing it. Like you had customers who had expectations. We provide service to customers, as Marc explained, so that they were like either doing performance testing themselves or like guessing how to size, to scale your systems. So basically, that's what we were looking for when we were looking for load testing tool like Gatling, was to be able to have some way to predict performance and load impact on the systems we develop.
And for the people who don't know, you've been using Gatling
since we started using it, first the open source part of it initially, like 4 years ago maybe. Also for tile rendering performance benchmark. And then we moved on to the enterprise version of Gatling and the cloud-based features and the private locations feature mostly, and all those associated dashboardings like two years ago.
Mm. Oh, so awesome. And I want to learn a little bit more. One of the challenges that's like more interesting for me to understand more is like about how do you make sure that you stay like how that you like how do you usually manage like resources and make sure that you stay resource efficient and when it comes to testing?
So we base all our projects are now based on cloud hosting,
Mm.
and we want to have scalable architectures and on-demand cloud pricing in general. So what we do when we do load testing using Gatling is that we reproduce production environment at a smaller scale, but that's big enough to allow us to validate that's scaling up or down of the infrastructures is valid. For example, we
Mm.
base projects on Kubernetes in Azure. That's one of the examples. And we we slice like we take like a 10% size of the production, and we run load testing on that.
And maybe you weren't like in the decision making process, but what made you choose Gatling?
So there was a
When
really
what were
yeah
I'm sorry, go ahead.
go ahead. Yeah, there was good alignment, like going back to the product pillars you presented earlier, that we had a good alignment considering most our where we come from. Whereas development teams, so people who start coding, we have a small QA team, but mostly developers, and that was very good, like uh, technical technology culture alignment with the product. The fact that you can like code, test in using different technologies, and the lightweight part of it coming from a developer's perspective. There's no need to learn a big new UI or stuff like that, or a whole new stack. You just code the test a bit like you would have coded unit tests, for example, to start with, and then you make it evolve to actual load tests. But that was the good fit. And the other really good fit was about the private locations, because we provide service and we develop apps for our customers. And as Marc-André said earlier, it's usually backend systems that are closed, not exposed to the public. So the private location feature of Gatling, that's to deploy a test injection mechanism within a closed infrastructure. That was really key to the choice of Gatling to us.
Wonderful. That's great. Not sure if like Hugo or Mark would like to add something else to this slide. Maybe we can go to the next. Okay, so and I want you to paint us the picture of how things were before Gatling, if you remember, or if you were around, or if you know how things were before you start, because you told me that you've been with Gatling first open source, now enterprise edition. You started with Gatling community edition, and you kind of like graduated. But how was the world before Gatling? Paint that picture for me.
So before Gatling, we were not really able to predict the performance response of our systems under high load, to sum it up. So we were not able to confirm, for example, how many users the what could be like panning or zooming around the map at the same time on a web platform. To sum up the tiling question, we're not able to confirm how fast the tiles will render. That's really user impacting, because it's on the way on the user interaction, and when people want to see the map, they want to see it as fast as possible.
Of
So
course.
that was the world before Gatling. We're like testing changes infrastructure sizes in production, and waiting for the user feedback, and then seeing if it fits. It was usually over provisioned, so either cost too much or under provision, meaning the performance was not there.
I understand. And were you using a load testing or performance testing tool before Gatling, or were you doing like ad hoc testing or
Was
manual
mostly
tests? Like,
mostly manual tests and ad hoc testing. So no, Gatling is kind of the first actual load testing tool that we use. And
I'm glad
it
to hear.
seemed it seemed easy for us to choose this one, because it was like easy to start using it, contrary to some other tool that would have involved a massive investment in like whole load testing teams and stuff like that.
I
And just
understand. Thank
to add on what Samuel just said, like he said before, we let the user tell us if it was slow or not. So the impact of that is really big on user perception, and sometimes it's costly, because the users will say they will try it when it launch, it's not good enough, and they will say, well, this application is slow, and they will keep that in mind. So when you're first releasing something, you have to make sure that it's quick, because the user impression will stick with them, and so that has a big impact. So before we were not able to do those kind of things.
Yeah, first impressions matter, and when you're giving like a bad or not as solid first impression, no, it is what it is. I want to take a second to remind everyone on the audience that the floor is open for your questions. So if you have any questions, something you want to ask, something you want to say, a comment, please add it. Please let us know, and we will answer it as we go. So please don't hesitate. Don't be shy. We're here for you. This webinar is like, it's for you. So if you have any questions, anything you want to add, please do it, because it's important. It helps us, and it also it's good for you because it allows you to understand something in case that it's not clear enough. But thank you very much for helping us understand the challenges. So to sum up, you weren't using a solution and you chose Gatling. You went from open source to enterprise. And are you happy so far with Gatling?
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Awesome.
it was really natural to introduce to the first project, and now it's used on like at least 4 or 5 customers 2 years after, right? And yeah, we see our use of the tool getting some good traction within the different development teams we have, and it's kind of now our go-to tool, and we every time now we answer to some new business need for our customers, we can now think about Gatling, and we use it on every case that has performance objectives. Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you very much. Oh, I think we already covered this one, but just for you to take a look. So the test as code approach of Gatling, and yeah, I think that's now. Um, Now I want to talk a little bit more about the part that's like the core of this webinar, and the part that's like really interesting for me. Um, so for those unfamiliar with tile architectures, can you walk us through how a standard tile request flow works through your system?
Yeah. What are map tiles? The world map is divided into small squares called tiles. So each tile is basically it's an image file, and it works that way so that when you visualize data on a map, when you pan or zoom the map, it's gonna only load the new tiles you need. So you don't have to reload the whole viewport. So, for
Okay.
example, if you pan to the right, it's only going to load the couple of tiles it needs to complete the view.
Awesome.
So we can see on the image. So the tiles have a XYZ coordinate system. So X and Y is the usual table system, a row and columns, and Z is the zoom level. So for example, at zoom level 1, you have four tiles in total to cover the whole world, and at zoom level 20, I believe you would have like a trillion tiles, because each time you go up in zoom level, it's multiplied by 4. And basically, the important part is that each tile has an XYZ coordinate, and it kind of works as their unique ID.
Mm.
So our server, it handles requests for one tile at a time. So it receives tile coordinates, and it returns the image file with the data on it, basically. So what happens is that when it receives the request, it checks first if the tile is in the cache, because we have a cache system, so we don't have to render the tiles over and over again, because it's very demanding. So if the cache is already in the cache, it's going to return the cached image, and if it's not already in the cache, then it's going to reads the data, draws the tile, and it's going to return it, and then it's going to add it to the cache. So so the only time a tile is actually rendered is when it's the first time anyone ever requested that specific tile. So yeah, so the only the first time it's requested that the tile is rendered. After that, the next request is gonna skip that part and just return the cached image. So yeah, for our test, we needed to test two components separately: the caching engine and the rendering engine, and we wanted to do that both in the same simulation. So so yeah. So this is so testing the cache engine was actually the easy part, because all we had to do is make sure all Gatling virtual users requested the same tiles. Because the coordinates of the tiles never changes, every request is served from the cache. Uh, well, uh, except the first request, because but we're doing thousands of requests, so it's not gonna really affect the average request time. So so on the image, we can see an example of what the scenario simulates. So it's a 4x4 square of 16 tiles, and that would represent the portion of the map the users see while using the app. So in our app, we can see a map, and then we have tools that we can use on the data. So this is what a user would request, and each tile is requested one at a time to a server. So that's how we simulate like a real user behavior. We just request a, a square of 4x4 tiles.
And just a quick question to understand things a little bit better. Why did you decide that all virtual users should request the same 4x4 grid?
Because it's all gonna be because since it's all the same coordinates, like all the tiles have the same ID for each users, then it's always gonna request those same tiles. So it's always gonna be served from the cache, because it doesn't need to re-render those tiles. It already has rendered them one time, and it has added them to the cache. So we know if all users request the same tiles, we know it's gonna hit the cache engine and not the rendering engine.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah. So and then testing the rendering engine was the complex part, because we needed to bypass the cache. We need every virtual Gatling user to request different tiles.
Okay.
Since it's the first time that tiles is requested, it's gonna get rendered by the map engine, the rendering engine.
Yeah.
So for that we use the Gatling user ID property, which is available in the session object, to change the tile coordinates for every user. We're gonna look at some code after, but with this, basically each user gets a unique 4x4 viewport, and then we start from a point in the west at a high enough zoom level, so that we know we have plenty of tiles to go until we reach the eastern boundary of our data.
Okay.
So yeah, so we can look at the code see.
Ready for the code?
Yeah. See how we did that?
Okay, let's go with the code. Okay, walk us in, Hugo. Walk us through.
Yeah. Is there a way to?
Let me see if I can zoom in, but I don't think it's gonna be possible. No, sadly,
right.
I don't think that's gonna be possible. But yeah,
No worry. So
and we're working within the confines of, like, the presentations, the slide
So
deck.
basically, this is this is in Kotlin, by the way. So this is the function that calls the map engine and requests a map tile. So
Okay.
first the function receives the coordinates of the
Mhm.
top left tile,
Okay.
which is our starting tile, and it comes from a configuration file, but basically it's hard coded. We never
Okay.
changed it. And then we have two repeat loops to request the 4x4 square of tiles from the starting tile.
Mhm.
And in Gatling DSL, we need to specify that we want to keep the counters in the Gatling session for X and Y, so we can use them
Okay.
later
Uh-huh.
to build the tiles coordinate. So and then the other function is the function that calculate the coordinates. So we have a flag in that function, so unique per user. So we can tell the function if we want to every user to request the same tiles, or for every user to have unique tiles coordinates. So if the unique per user flag is on, then the user ID becomes a multiplier that we use to modify the starting tile coordinates. So the user ID is just a sequential integer that
I'm sorry.
starts from 1, and then we
Okay.
multiply the user ID by the width of the viewport. So this
Okay.
shifts the starting tile for each user,
Mhm.
and then the repeat loops, it just requests the 16 tiles, which are now different for each of the virtual users.
Okay.
And so, and both paths, the same tiles for every user and unique tiles for every user, they're run in the same scenario. They're just one after the other, and then we use the Gatling group tags to differentiate the two paths in the report. So we know which request was served from the cache and which was not. And so there's one more problem with this, is that after the first run, the
Mm-hmm.
all tiles are now in the cache.
Oh.
So if we run the simulation again, it's going to call the exact same tiles, and it's going to pull them from the cache. So to fix this, we needed to delete the cache before each run, and we did that automatically using a setup scenario, which calls an endpoint over API that we already had available. So it was very simple, and this endpoint deletes the cache. So we used a Gatling code for this, but we could have used like a standard Java client, like REST template, because it's not actually part of the scenario of the
Okay.
simulation. But we decided to use the Gatling client because well, it was simple. It was already there. So the trick though is that the setup scenario is called before every other scenarios, and it's hard coded to receive only one user, because we
Mm.
just want to execute it one time. So it's a nice little hack. And we can look at the user injection for the simulation. So we can see at first the setup scenario is called with only one user, and then we have three scenarios running at the same time. So one is the render tile scenario we just looked at, and the others are for different tools available in our app.
Okay.
We decided to run all scenarios simultaneously and distribute the total number of virtual users into them according to a percentage. So, for
Okay.
example, 20% of the total users will be dispatched to scenario A, 30% to scenario B, and then the rest to the remaining scenario. So, this is meant to reflect real usage patterns across the different app, across the different app components. So, and of course, all of this is configurable. So when starting the simulation in Gatling Enterprise, in Gatling Cloud,
Okay.
we can specify the user percentage.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
for example, we can set the percentage to 100% for a single scenario. So so we know that's only one that's gonna run. So that's nice.
And how do you typically decide on the distribution?
It was we looked at real stats, real usage stats of our app, and then try to distribute that accordingly. Like we have some scenarios that use the just some typical. We're trying to represent what a typical usage of our app is occurring. So we have a scenario for using this kind of tool, this other kind of tool. We know it's used less often, so we're gonna just send 5% of the users to that. But the big scenario is the render task scenario, because we know if you're using the app, you're gonna render a map.
Yeah, I understand. No, thank you very much for that
If
explanation.
I can add on this,
For
Diego,
sure.
just to answer your question. For example, in Azure, you have App Insight, or you have any other tools that do analysis on your usage of your app. So we use that to measure what users are doing, and then we can replicate it in our scenarios.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. And now let's talk a little bit about the Gatling's impact on Korem. So, what were the most immediate improvements that you saw once you began using Gatling in your testing pipeline?
Maybe more for me. The as discussed a bit earlier before, it was very easy. Hugo just showed some test scenarios that are based on Kotlin code. So that was really natural for us, coming from teams who know mostly how to code before they know how to do the testing. So that was the way to us to go there. The impact is that we were able to confirm the performance response of the systems that we deliver to customers. We are able to size the target production to make sure in advance, before it breaks, that it will actually support the amount of users that was planned on it. And we are also able to use it as a comparison tool for when we do code changes, to make sure we want to do some performance improvement in the code base of the app. So we do Gatling test run before the change, after the change, and there's like some very efficient tools in the Gatling Cloud UI that allows you to compare the different test runs, and that gives us more proof that the performance improvements are here. So it's mostly like going from what we had before was more about feelings about performance and empiric methods, and now we have metrics about performance, and we can reproduce the runs to confirm those metrics.
Yeah, I can see that. And I want to know what's next for you all in your performance testing roadmap, not only for test coverage, but also for automation and observability. Where's 2026 gonna take you in terms of performance And in terms of testing, what are your plans for 2026? And this is a question for you, for the three of you. I'm sure you both. I'm sure you all have different ideas of what you want to do. So I'm curious to learn a little bit more about that. But let's start maybe with Mark.
Yeah, well, our applications are getting more and more complex. We try to follow the technology trends and like the 3D rendering, client-side rendering is coming into our pipeline. So we have to be able to test that, and everything with AI technologies also. We have to make sure that it's still performant. So this is where we are going in terms of products. Um, I don't know, Sam, if you have anything on your side. I know something that we are taking into account is uh, using Gatling more in our other projects. We started with a couple of projects, but I think the more we move with new projects, we want to implement it.
Yeah, as you said, you know, we one of part of the technology upgrade is also some backend systems will be upgraded to new versions or alternatives that are more like cloud native systems, for example. And I expect us in 2026 to leverage. You know, we started writing test scenarios, starting doing the setup, and now it's some effort to write those and to put them in place and make sure they give proper results, etc. And now we expect some return on investment here in 2026, for example, when we replace the backend tile rendering engine, we'll be able to reuse the same load testing scenarios we have for a very shorter cost and effort in general to cap it to get the return on investment on the testing. That's what we expect to do in 2026 mostly.
Awesome, thanks. And I have a question, and it ties in well with my next slide about the lessons learned. My good friend Luis asked you all, what would you highlight about someone? What would you highlight about someone who will be using Gatling for the first time? Let's say someone who understands the basics of performance testing but hasn't worked with it directly. So what would you tell someone who wants to use Gatling but hasn't really worked with it directly?
Yeah, maybe I let Hugo confirm that one, but look at the injection model you chose.
Yeah, I think that's really it's the core of the problem here is that it's hard to you'll need to test a lot of different injection strategies because you can have like a very clean code and you can implement all the scenarios you want, but the core of the thing is how you insert users into them,
Mm.
and it's there's like no you won't find any like solution to this online. Like you got to try some stuff, and yeah.
So looking at your injection profile. Okay, that's a good one. And now that we're talking about lessons, if you had to give one piece of advice to a team that's using Gatling, what would it be? And don't use the same one. Don't go with injection again.
Sorry, what was the
If you
question?
if you had to give one piece of advice to a team building something like you're building or doing what you're doing, what kind of advice would you give your younger self like 3 years ago? And
I
when it
mean,
comes to testing.
it was pretty easy to get a hold of the whole Gatling uh, DSL, and the documentation is actually really helpful. I think I must have read the whole thing like 10 times now.
I'm sure
So
Sean's gonna be
yeah,
happy
I'd say
about that.
like read the whole thing because you're gonna find some very some unknown features like the user ID, for example,
Mm-hmm.
which is I don't think it's a well-known feature, but it's very powerful one when you work with like constraints in your scenarios. So yeah, there's a lot of little hidden gem in the documentation, in the DSL. So I'd say have a good look around before you start anything.
Awesome. I'm gonna tell Sean, our product manager, our product marketing manager, that you like our documentation. He's gonna love that feedback. And what about you, Sam or Mark? What advice would you give your former self that's just starting with Gatling? Hmm?
Don't underestimate in your project planning how long it takes to go to a stable scenario.
Okay.
Because yeah, it's there's some back and forth and there's a whole iterative process to go to a scenario that will give good results. And make sure you plan for updates of the libraries too. That there's very good CI/CD tooling provided by Gatling. Like they provide, for example, a Maven build plugin that we use that works very well, and integrate it as soon as you can in the process, because there will be updates on the Gatling libraries, and at some point you will need to keep up to date so that the Gatling cloud can still work with your code base and is still able to understand your test results in particular. So yeah, planning for continuous update, so CI/CD, and yeah, don't underestimate the initial iterative approach and time it takes to set up the scenario.
Thank you. That's fantastic. Maybe I'll just cut it short. You guys gave me a couple of things. Mark, not sure if you have any lessons, but it seemed
No, I think Sam and Hugo explained it really well. But as a product owner, for me, when I talk to a customer, it helps a lot to have this trust into trusting your code change um, when you're pushing some really big code change. They want to be sure that it works, and we provide proof that it will. So it helps me as a product owner to have this and not just words. We have proof
yeah.
now, so it's really great.
Thank you very much. And let's just end this incredible webinar with a little bit of Gatling's roadmap. Thank you very much, guys. I'll take it from here. So what have we released this year? So this year we've been working with released run comparisons. We released Postman collections and load tests. We released a Datadog integration in May, built from Git in June. We also expanded our JavaScript SDK in August. We worked with our admin API in September. Okay, and then the newest things we've done are both Gatling Studio, which I told you guys about in a couple days ago, where you can convert your recordings into ready-to-use scenario code. It's pretty much a new companion app for faster test creation. And we've also released today Dynatrace integration that it's going to expand observability integrations and allow you to ingest traces and metrics from Dynatrace for better observability. And we will be releasing in January an AI-powered automated report analysis that's going to be fire. So stay tuned for that. It's really good. I can't tell you a lot about it because secret still, but I mean, for those of you, that's what's going to happen. And now I just want to take a second to talk a little bit more about Gatling Studio. If you haven't tried it, please do it. If you like, for instance, Luis, if you want to start scripting and building like Gatling scenarios like quickly, maybe Studio would be an interesting tool for you, because it would allow you to record browser-based interactions, automatically generate HAR files, convert those recording into executable Gatling load tests, and you can do it using Gatling Enterprise account trial. I tested it myself. I'm not a developer, although I dabble in coding a little, and I made it happen. So it's super easy to use, super simple, and the same goes for you guys. Try it. Your feedback it's always appreciated, and I think that's it for us today. And if someone has some questions, I see Dumitru is typing something. And if someone else has a question, this is your moment. Thank you very much, Luis, for your question earlier. So let's wait a couple of minutes for the questions. And yeah, thank you very much for okay. No, for sure. Dumitru, yeah, let's message me on LinkedIn if you're interested. I can still tell you anything about like a lot about it, but it's gonna happen like in 2026, early 2026. It's happening. But yeah, stay tuned. But in any case, I mean, message me on LinkedIn and we can talk a little bit more about it. If we have more questions, please, if you have a question, type it so I can see that you're typing it. And if you don't, well, just gonna wait for. I'll just wait for a minute. But in any case, Sam, Hugo, Mark, it's been a real pleasure to have this webinar with you today. Hugo, I learned a lot. The same goes for you, Sam and Mark. And it's always great to collaborate with, real users of Gatling and with people who are like, like you in the trenches using Gatling, in your day-to-day work. So yeah, I don't think we're gonna have any more questions. So maybe let's just wrap it. Thank you very much for your time. And for all of you who are okay. Yeah, no, so Luisa gave us some good vibes. Guillaume is also typing. Okay, thank you. Now that you know that I was gonna wrap this up, you started typing, right? That's how it works.
They
Yeah,
only say
Guillaume.
thank you.
No, but well, everyone, thank you very much for your time. And guys, it was a pleasure. Let's stay in touch and happy holidays to you all. Okay.
You too. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Holidays, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.